Welcome to Bound by Books. I'm sci-fi romance author Tina Moss, and I'm joined today by my co-host.
Marianne Maria. I write paranormal romance, paranormal urban fantasy, and everything paranormal for now.
All the paranormal.
All the things. Yes, all the things.
So before
How
we
are
jump in, how are you doing, Marianne? How's it going?
okay. I have been deep in the cave and took a little bit of a break to do a little bit of artwork yesterday and sent it off to you. And
Nice.
just you know, trying to right now I'm fighting with making my main character likable.
Mm,
I'm on that line where somebody needs to be brazen and kind of kick-assy, and then at the
mm-hmm.
same time you still want her to be likable. You don't want her to sound petulant, you don't want her to sound too much like a bitch. You want her to, you know, you want her to be likable. So
Right.
in the messy middle, trying to do that, while at the same time having her accomplish what needs to be accomplished.
Right. I feel like
So,
there's so many, standards for female characters in particular where we're treading that line of, is she gonna come off too aggressive? Is she gonna come off, with an attitude problem? Whereas in real life, I don't know that we would be as harsh as we sometimes
yeah,
are in our fiction.
I suppose. I mean, that you want to keep the drama, which
Mm-hmm.
is part of what we're going to be talking about today is
Yes.
making, not just the drama that's on our pages between our main characters and their conflicts, or even, between themselves and their love interests, which is always fun. Um, what is it? What is it like? The angry foreplay type of a thing.
That's
Fighting
my
and then
favorite.
yeah, fighting into foreplay, that type of thing. So, but drama, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we're discussing drama,
It's a kind
and
of a perfect segue into it because the difference of like, how do we hold people to what standards we hold them to and which people we hold to what standards. And I have talked about it a little bit before in the podcast and on my personal TikTok, but there is this power dynamic between authors and readers, and usually authors holding the higher position in that power dynamic just
yes,
because of the nature of readers loving their books and such. So there is a different standard, I think, that authors are held to than, let's say, reviewers or readers, or now this kind of newer genre of person, which is the book talker, bookstagrammer, booktuber, kind of book content creator. They're also held
right,
to those standards. So
right.
yeah, I think we're going to jump into that a little bit today and talk about some of the drama and some of the scandals that have plagued the book community since the beginning of publishing time, but in particular, like how I think women have been kind of targeted for that drama. And I know that's not a word that everybody likes to use, but unfortunately, it is kind of the word that we have. But there's definitely a certain, how do we say, allure, I think, that the romance genre in particular has that's kind of beholden to these things. What do you think, Marianne?
Our genre gives birth to the drama mamas. Yeah,
As
both on the
easily
page
as
and off the
possible.
page.
I try to say that as virtually as possible, but there really is no way. We just are kind of,
No.
in it.
Well, I mean, for those listening, I mean, if you've consumed enough social media, especially over the course of the last 5 years, I'm sure you have come across the collective gasp that happens in our community when somebody crosses the line or does something that the community as a whole either doesn't like, or they do something that really is not all that big, but there are a bunch of squeaky wheels that make it a big deal. So I
Yeah.
mean, so we've run the gamut from that. Um, and the most recent being a author who 2 years ago faked their own death. We don't know why.
Right.
We just know that this was something that was done, and it was done in such a underhanded and just like, you can't make this stuff up.
Yeah.
Even
I mean,
for writers, you can't make this stuff
obviously,
up.
this person, we wish them well. Obviously, there's mental health issues going on
Yes.
there.
Yeah.
But this is kind of the definition of author behaving badly. Like we don't
Yeah.
get. I can't think of a situation that's been in recent years like more like worse than this. This is really bad. The fact that, she would put her friends online and readers through this kind of horrific ordeal of faking her death. And not only that, but I don't know if you know Marianne, she then went on to create a fake pen name,
Yes.
rejoin her group as this new writer asking for help on things, and
Right.
then eventually getting to the point where she took that group over, her old group, as this new person who, and never revealed that, that she was the same person until, just today, essentially. And the idea of pretending to unalive yourself, well, so we don't get any of the algorithms upset, but then come back as another person to essentially spy on her group and take it over. That's clearly a lot of, like I said, mental health issues and some trauma going on there.
Yes,
So
absolutely. And the thing is we don't know what the source of that trauma is. The
right.
only thing that was reported was that she had reached out to people when she finally fessed up that she had unalived herself with the help of her own child, with the help of her own
Yeah.
daughter. But even that's come into question, that did she actually use her kid to do this? Now, her kid meaning an adult
Right.
child, not a child.
Or
Or
was
did
it
she
her?
pose as her
Yeah.
own child, posting on her own site, on her original Facebook page, saying, thank you for all of the best wishes from my mom and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, it makes you wonder what would drive somebody to that point.
Right.
I mean, if somebody is on the edge enough to be able to even consider this as a possibility. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, was it an experiment, to see whether or
Yeah.
not that her pen name would do as well as her other name?
But I mean, this gets even more twisted in the sense that, like, the family, or in the guise of the family, because we don't know, took money for her funeral,
Yes, I
like
know there was
collected
a
funds.
GoFundMe page. There was a GoFundMe page. Yes.
I mean, absolutely, it's shocking
Bizarre.
on many levels. And I think it's okay for the community to kind of feel two ways about it. Like, on one hand, yes, absolutely thrilled that she is alive and, for all intensive purposes, okay, obviously needing some help, but she is alive. And on the flip side, feeling just so hurt and betrayed. And obviously, this brings up people's own traumas and triggers,
Right.
which are very
Right.
valid. And I think it's kind of okay to feel like relief and anger and sadness and all
All
of
the
the emotions
feels.
that are going to come up with this. But yeah, this is probably one of the worst particular instances of, like I said, authors behaving badly, or just, a scandal within our community. And I think what people fail to realize is that, sometimes people use the word drama in a very flippant way, like, oh, it's the latest gossip kind of thing, and it's exciting and it gets the adrenaline going. But this is real people and real lives. Like, she had friends online who mourned her and
Yes.
grieved for her, and
Yes.
felt guilty, like, that if they had said the wrong thing, or if they hadn't reached out, like, there's real life pain behind all this, and of course the author themselves. So I think that's important to remember, that with all of these kinds of instances that come up, these are real people that affect our community. So
I mean, our industry is just as cold and unforgiving as the music industry and Hollywood,
mm-hmm.
and the film and TV and so
Yeah.
forth. And it can be just as cold in terms of getting your break,
Mm-hmm.
because there are plenty of people out there singing and acting their woulda, shoulda, couldas, because they just didn't, that break didn't come for them. And the same thing, there are plenty of authors out there with talent who write amazing stories who just never get that break to be able to make it to the next echelon.
Right.
That being said, social media is like a double-edged sword when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to that, because as much as it can catapult you into popularity, it can also be used against you, and it could really strike at the core of an artist. It really
Mm-hmm.
can, because it's not just people coming at you about your work. It's people coming at you about your physical appearance, about whether or not you have talent, whether or not you. Sometimes, I mean, there have been authors that I knew that were who people trolls have said to them that they should just give up writing or go kill themselves. I mean, it's
It's
like it's
horrible.
it's horrible, some of the things that are said. And I think one of the things that I learned early on, and I'm afraid that a lot of people within our community don't learn, is to hands up, step away from the keyboard. When
Mm-hmm.
somebody when you come across a troll, whether it's in a bad review or in a comment on social in some way, don't interact. It's like, don't feed the trolls. The same way you don't feed the animals at the zoo, you don't feed the trolls. You don't give them anything, because the more you give them, the more you interact with them, it just fuels them to not, I gotcha. So you just
Right.
hands up, walk away from the keyboard. And I think a lot of times that's kind of hard to do, and that may contribute to people spiraling that would foster something like this, this bizarre thing that
Behavior.
just happened with this,
Yeah.
with this one author, and we're not naming names because we don't know what the cause is. And like you said very compassionately that there's mental illness involved here, definitely,
Yeah.
but there have been other ones,
Mm-hmm.
that we've come across. I'm sure you've got a ton of them. I can think of one in particular that
Yeah.
that revolved around a copyrighted word years ago.
Oh my God. That was a huge one as well. And I think it's worth talking about because that also goes into more nitty-gritty parts of publishing where an author essentially was trying to gatekeep a word from the community, and a word that is very popular in certain areas of the romance community and in books, on book covers, book
Right,
titles, book series, etc. And the idea that one person could kind of like hold this word hostage
right.
under a trademark is wild to me. And obviously it opened the doors to other people trying to do things like with the word alpha, I think was after that, and so
Yes.
on. Eventually
It,
these cases were dismissed, but still it definitely rattled the community in a very serious way. And
and rightly
so
so, because
absolutely.
I don't believe
Absolutely.
one author has the ability to gatekeep an actual word, to hold it hostage. You want to
No, it's
stylize
wild.
that word. You want to use that word in a specific title, and then you want to trademark or copyright that title. That's a
Right.
different story, whether it's in a specific font that you've had created that is proprietary to you. That's fine, but you cannot just put your hooks into a word that's part of common language. You just can't,
Exactly. That's the key
and
here. It's not like we're trying to trademark, I don't know, like Star Wars or something, right? It's something that was, with the word cocky, with the word alpha. These are words that are very common to the community, and in this particular case, contemporary romance in particular. But
right.
it's certainly not something that you could hold hostage. But it didn't prevent this author from trying and
Well,
essentially
actually,
getting
she got it
blacklisted.
through. Well, she passed it. It went through because someone was asleep at the wheel over in the copyright office, and
Right.
it caused um I believe it was a very, very prominent intellectual property attorney to come out of retirement to fight this on
Right.
behalf of all authors, because people, especially authors that write very, very spicy books, that word is something that is part of titles, it's part of book descriptions and so forth, and it
Yeah.
caused a lot of waves.
And I'm not a lawyer, but I think a good thing to know about this kind of thing is that even if you get something, let's say, trademarked or copyrighted, that doesn't automatically guarantee you protection. You have to be able to defend your copyright or your trademark in a court of law if suits are brought against you, or if you bring
Right,
suits against somebody else. You have to prove that you have, there's value in that word to your brand or whatever
right,
product it is you're trying to do. So it's not a matter of just like, oh, I filed and it passed. It's also a lot of legal battles as well. It's a lot of money in court. Obviously the people with more money can last longer in a court battle, which is unfortunate, and it disproportionately affects members of our community. So this was something that was very big to make sure that was shot down quickly,
yes,
because
thank
the
God.
entire community could be affected.
Right, right.
And certainly
I,
marginalized authors would be more affected again with, not having the resources to defend like that. That's a hard thing to do for anybody, but it's certainly going to disproportionately affect people. So I'm glad that didn't happen.
Yeah,
It
me
was
too.
scary.
I mean, I remember an author being mentioned years ago, when I was still belonged to Romance Writers of America, whose name was Adele. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that was actually her
Given
legal
name.
given name
I
on her birth
remember this. Mm-hmm.
certificate and so forth. And this is where there's crossover from other mediums as well, because the singer Adele,
Mm-hmm.
not her herself, but her
Her team.
management team and her lawyers had copyrighted her name.
Right.
So this author had signed her, her newsletters and correspondence, cheers Adele, basically. And they came after her with a cease and desist letter
Wild.
until
For her own
Adele,
legal name.
right, her own legal name. And I had heard, now I don't know if it's true, but I had heard that the actual singer Adele found
Mm-hmm.
out about it and was just like, what the,
Right. What are you doing?
no, we don't do this, that type of a thing. So good on her if she
Right.
did, unless it's just, something I heard. And but I'm hoping that somebody had a brain and and
Yeah.
actual reality there,
But that speaks to the issue though of somebody like in Hollywood, like Adele, who is obviously very wealthy from her endeavors, could easily have taken the other road and squashed this person. Like
Oh yeah.
absolutely could have squashed this person and not allowed them to use their own legal given name. Now, of course, this begs the question, if a singer came up also bearing the name Adele, would the situation have been different? This is in the book world, so it's two different medias colliding,
Right.
but
Right.
it could happen, and it could easily happen, which is why I think it's so important in situations like this that when there is a clear violation of like the community's rights in publishing, that the community comes together as much as possible, which kind of brings me into my next thing that I wanted to ask you about, Marianne, especially for newer authors out there. How the heck do they navigate this? How do they, swim in these waters? How do we know what to say or not to say? What do I do if I'm a newer author, especially in this world?
Well, I mean, for people who are the younger generations, and I say this because I'm older than you by quite a bit, and especially like the old, the millennials and the zennials that grew up with social media as being part and parcel of their world. I didn't grow up with that, and to have everything, on your hands,
Mm-hmm.
on a phone, like right here at the,
Right.
so it's always in front of you. Scrolling and especially doom scrolling is something that people will do,
Mm-hmm.
and it's you can get caught up, I think. So I
Yeah.
think you have to train yourself that when you see something that smells a little bit like it's drama, or people are commenting left and right, oh my God, I can't believe they did this, or if they use the word let's boycott, the words
Mm-hmm.
let's boycott, those are triggers that I think that would be um a good rule of thumb to stay away from, that
Mm-hmm.
unless you enjoy the drama. If you enjoy the drama, then have at it, but you're going to
Yeah.
have to reap the consequences of posting things that could possibly backlash on you, on your own sales, on your own fan base, and then affect you going forward in your career. So you have to weigh whether putting that snarky comment to
Mm-hmm.
jump on the bandwagon is going to be worth it or not.
That's great advice. I think too, it's very important to try to distinguish like when is somebody trying to get a rise out of you? Is this a person that's like posting in order to get views or to order we call it rage farming, right? On TikTok, where somebody is putting out this hot take or this bad take that's clearly meant to incite anger. So it's called rage farming. And if the more people that they can get to react to it, the more views that they get, and they're perfectly happy. So I think it's
Right.
really important to recognize like when is somebody rage farming, or when has the conversation taken a turn where it's important to take action if it's something that you believe in, right?
Yeah.
Everybody has their different lines in the sand. So what I usually try to do is I take time. If I see something that's going on in the community and people are kind of talking about it and it's getting that, it's starting to roll and things are happening, I sit with it for a bit. Maybe a day, maybe a couple days, depending on how I'm feeling. And I try to navigate my own feelings and thoughts on it and say, okay, what's the situation? Is this something that needs to be addressed? And how do I feel if I don't speak on it versus if I speak on it? And that kind of is my guiding compass for everything, but it's very tricky. Not
Yeah.
everything needs, your voice, and not every issue is for you, right?
Right.
Some issues I will go to bat for, like diversity in publishing and making sure that our marginalized community members have a voice. Like those things are very important to me.
Same.
But the thing, so something else that comes along that may be very important to somebody else, maybe just isn't as important to me. And so therefore, does my voice matter in that conversation? If it can give credibility or weight to the issue, and I feel that it's important, that's great. But I think not every issue is for everybody. So I think it's important to navigate your own thoughts on that.
Yep, I agree. I mean, I had a friend who posted the J&B ad that came from Spain over the holidays. And I believe it was Spain because it was done in Spanish, but it was basically for trans positive. It was a grandfather who taught himself how to put on makeup because he wanted to be able to put the makeup on his grandson who was trans female. And the LGBTQ community is something that's very, very close to my heart, and I'm a huge ally for it. And so when I saw this, it was posted on a friend's website, on a website, a feed, and I saw it and I thought to myself, okay, what do I do here? I want to share this because it was done with such love. I mean, you just choke up, it was done with such love. And I thought, all right, if I post this, what's going to happen? Are readers going to be upset with me? Are they going to, are they not even going to look at it? Or are they going to look at it and go and then just be like, okay, well, we're not going to buy her books anymore, because of how I am aligning myself. And then, but because this is something that's so important to me, I posted it, but I didn't post it on my author page because it wasn't shared in a professional capacity. It was shared between friends, but I did put it on my personal page, which has like 1,000 people who follow me, and there's a lot of crossover with readers between my author page and my reader page, my reader group, and my personal page. And I put it there, and all I did was put, if only the world could love as much as this grandfather loves. And then I said, hate will be blocked and deleted immediately, and it was really surprising to me that out of the 1,000 or so, just about 1,000 people who follow me on my personal page, only 16 people liked it or commented on it. And I know that a ton of my reader friends had seen it. I know it. But it was enough of a hotbed topic that people made the choice, like you were just talking about, not to comment on it. Now, do I hold that against them? Absolutely not. That's their own choice, whether they want to. Not everybody is going to feel as passionate as I do about things. And, and that's fine, as long as nobody's going to be spewing hate, because I don't play that. But I'm not going to hold it against them. But it's a matter of, like you said, people making the conscious choice whether posting on something or making their comment is worth it for them.
Exactly.
So that doesn't mean that they don't agree with me. But at the same time, they may feel that there are other variables in their life or in their career that would prevent them from doing so.
Absolutely. And I think as an author, you have to realize that even if you have zero social media, right? Maybe you just have your website and that's where people go, and that's okay. But even in that circumstance, you are still going to be a public figure to some extent because you're putting your work out into the world, and your work is going to speak to readers in whatever way that they perceive it.
Correct.
Now, it's not your job to tell your readers how to perceive your books. That's on the readers to do. So I think it's really important that you decide, especially early in your career, if you can, how public you want to be, how much you want to share with your audience. For example, a line in the sand for me is I don't share any private information about my family or friends. I keep that all absolutely off the internet. I share a lot about my personal feelings and experiences, or I try as much as I can to like be a little bit more vulnerable and to share some of my stories. That's a decision that I have made for me because I feel very strongly that it's important to convey, because maybe somebody else can also share that experience and gain something from it. But that's a very personal decision, and not every author is has to do that. I think that's the flip side of it. It's very easy to get caught under this idea that you have to share everything. You have to put yourself out there. It's the only way to get readers and connect and get sales. And that's not the case at all. It's very much up to you, and nobody is entitled to anything from you other than your books. You don't
Right.
have to share anything that
Right.
you are not comfortable
Right.
doing.
And it's just, when you see drama pass your feed, whether or it's on a TikTok video or an
Mhm.
Instagram reel or any kind of posts anywhere, um, just be careful. Think twice before
Mhm.
you jump on a bandwagon, because especially since you don't know if you have all the facts.
Exactly.
You don't want
That's
to end up
important.
you don't want to end up with egg on your face that you backed somebody and then found out that it was a lie, or somebody had um, taken something and blown it up completely out of proportion, and
Right.
you don't have all the facts. You just reading the headline instead of actually reading the story. And
Mhm.
which a lot of us are guilty of. They react to headlines instead of actually reading the meat of the story to figure out what's true and what's not true. So I just, it's like you said, it's a navigating these waters. There's all kinds of pitfalls. There's rocks and shoals and, tentacles and weeds and so forth that you're gonna get caught in, and you just have to figure out a way to make it smooth sailing for yourself. You
Yeah.
know,
I
you
think
know,
things have like the pulse, especially in America, has changed a lot. It used to be the advice to authors was always like, be very professional, don't share any of your personal opinions, make sure that you're always giving out this like persona of what the author is meant to be and look like and say, right? And it's all very kind of surface level. And that has changed a lot, especially I would say in the last 5 years with, the rise of Gen Z, social justice issues, advocacy
mhm.
becoming more of a thing that we hear a lot.
Yes.
So it's really important again just to set healthy boundaries for yourself and your social media and what you're comfortable talking about and what you're not comfortable talking about. And if you put something out there that you're like, wow, I shouldn't have said that, then you
Delete
know
it.
what? Exactly, delete it. It's yes,
Delete
it
it.
is the internet is forever, as we say, but it's your feed. You're allowed to do whatever you want with your
Mm.
social media. If you don't feel comfortable having it out there, delete it. If people start, harping on you for it, then either address it or ignore it and move on. They'll catch on to something else in the next 5 minutes. So it's,
Right.
just give yourself grace. You're going to mess up. I will put this out there right now. At some
Yeah.
point, we all say something that we feel like we shouldn't have said, and we want to take stuff back. So figure out how maybe now you might address it, or how you might handle that situation if you do say something that you feel bad about later. Whether you apologize in a public thing or you just say delete it and move on. Again, that's your decision. There's no one right way to do something, and the way that I do it might not be right for you. So
Hmm.
just give yourself grace as well. Social media is a complex world, and so is book publishing.
Yeah, it is. And you can always, if you want to discuss something, that's kind of a hotbed topic or something, just do it in a private chat with your besties. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Every one of us has author friends that we share with. I mean, we have our mod quad, that we're always
Absolutely.
talking about stuff and whatnot. Um, so you can, and people can find out information, share it that way so that
Yeah.
you're in the know without actually in the muck.
I would say with the caveat with that is you want to make sure that it's all people you trust, because
Yes.
nothing is private on the internet, right?
Yes,
You
yes,
write
yes,
it down in
yes.
the chat, it's there for that chat to have. So if you're really feeling it and you need to vent, call up a friend. Nobody's recording your phone calls, hopefully. Um so just, again, like I trust our mod pod implicitly.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say anything to them that I honestly wouldn't be afraid to put out in the world, because I'm not that shy about stating my opinions on most things. But again, just be careful. You want to make sure that you are protecting yourself and setting your lines in the sand to what you're comfortable with and what you're not.
Be
All right.
careful out there.
Yeah, be careful out there. So
It's
Marianne,
cold.
before we wrap this up, what would be your advice to somebody, let's say, who found themselves, and for the sake of the podcast, not in like, the hot water scandal type thing, because I think that's really difficult, and hopefully most people won't find themselves in that situation. Hope, again, I think in those situations, sometimes those lines are very clear, or at least the majority seems to be. Like, for example, what we talked about with Cockygate, like that was very clear. Like the community rose up together, which was
Right.
a great thing to see against an issue that was clearly a violation of authors' rights. But let's say, a newer author especially finds themselves or in a situation where maybe they said the wrong thing, or maybe they gave into a troll and vented, and now people are upset that they vented. What do you think, in your opinion, completely, obviously everybody's opinion is different, what do you think they should do in that situation?
I'm
I know
not
it's a
really.
tough one.
Yeah, it is. It's a real tough one because I don't want somebody to take my advice and then it backfires on them. Um,
Totally your opinion, so this is, again,
yeah.
not professional advice. It's just one author to another.
My opinion would be if you've said something that's going to create ire in amongst peers and amongst readers and so forth, is to decide whether or not what you said was worth you standing that ground, or if you should cut your losses and just either delete everything and then apologize. Ranting on social media about things that are happening in the world. I mean, I know that social media is, like a lot of people, when they rant, they're just screaming into the void, but ranting on social media is a two-edged sword. I mean, I have seen it where too much of it has colored the way people look at certain authors and
Mm-hmm.
and whatnot. And so, but you also don't want your presence on social media to be completely invisible and vanilla.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a personality. Authors are bigger than life. Our characters are bigger than life, so we have to be bigger than life. So I think my advice would be, decide what's important to you, whether or not you want to stand your ground, you're going to die on this hill, or you're going to, or you're going to cut your losses and either let it fade out until the next big thing happens and you're going to ride out the wave, or you're going to apologize for what you said and you're going to do a mea culpa.
That's
It's
great
really going to be
advice.
up your opinion.
Yeah.
What about
That
you? What would
that's
you
great
say?
advice. I mean, I've stepped in it before. Again, anybody who follows me knows that I'm pretty opinionated, so I have no shortage of stepping in things. But I pretty much stand by what I say. If I put something out there, I mean what I say. I am open to, my mind changing, and I'm certainly happy to announce, like, on the subject when I do change my mind. There was a situation, I think it was last year, however, that I felt like I had gone too far, that I had said things that were a bit too harsh. Nothing that I was like, oh my God, but like, as my tone was off. I felt like I didn't say it in the right way that I wanted to. Nobody was coming after me for it. Nobody was attacking me or being like, hey Tina, why'd you do that? It was just something that I felt icky about. And
Right.
so I put below my comment, hey, I think I said this in the wrong way and it came off too harsh, and here's what I meant, and I apologize if I hurt your feelings on that. It wasn't my intention. Because a lot of the times things are missed, especially in, texts that is very short,
Mm-hmm.
between social media, or can be misinterpreted from what your intentions were.
Right.
And sometimes the intentions, aren't what comes across.
Right.
And you
Because you
have to.
can't read inflection and
Exactly.
and
So it's important to, take all those things into consideration, and when you're putting your own content out there, but also when you're consuming content, because like Marianne said before, you don't always have the whole story. Usually
right.
there's one side, the other side, and the truth lies somewhere in between.
Well, I had a situation where people who don't know me, may not know that I am friends with Sherilyn Kenyon,
Mm.
or Sherilyn Kenyon McQueen, as Sherry is right now. And there was a whole issue with her, a legal situation with her divorce from her now ex-husband. And that was a hill I chose to die on,
Mm-hmm.
because Sherry's my friend. But what people don't know is that I lost readers, certain
Mm.
readers, because of that, because I chose to support her and I chose to believe Sherry. Now,
Right.
is Sherry dramatic? You know, yes. You know, did some of it make me have to back away a little bit because I did not want to become so embroiled in it because it's a life suck.
Right.
Yes, I did have to back away a little bit, but it's still she's still somebody who I support. You know, whether she's
Yeah.
cray cray and or not, it doesn't make a difference. She's still a sweetie, and
But
I
I think
chose to
that's
support. But
important too.
I lost people who I considered friends,
Yeah.
supporters and fans who I considered friends. I lost.
I think
So
that's important though to recognize as well that once you start putting yourself out there, not everybody's gonna like you. Just like not everybody's gonna like your book. So if you're a people pleaser or if you need the validation from other people, social media can be a very dangerous platform for you because it is impossible to please the entire world. It is
no, of
impossible to
course,
have
can't.
every single person who comes across your feed in whatever social media format like your stuff the same way that not everybody's going to like your book. So I think it is also important to recognize that yes, if you take a stand on certain issues, you may lose readers. There may be people who are like, you know what, she talks too much, I don't want to associate with her, and understand that that's a reality of
Right.
being a public figure out in
Yeah.
the world.
Yeah. The other thing is people will talk to you if you do get involved or you do find yourself attached in some way to some kind of a hotbed issue. Like I found myself attached in this situation with Sherry. People will, when they see that you are being a supporter of something, they automatically assume that you know more than you do or that you will
Mm-hmm.
talk about more than you were willing to talk about, and they'll be like, so spill the tea. They want to know. They'll sidle up and kind of want to see how much you gossip about. So
Right.
that's the other thing. You can get yourself in a lot of trouble by jumping on the gossip bandwagon.
Yeah.
So
And
I,
again, like we talked about before, I think it's really important. Trust your gut. If your
yes,
gut's telling you like, hey, this sounds like gossip instead of like an important issue that I really want to be involved in, step away. And if you want to learn more about Sherilyn Kenyon McQueen, Marianne did an awesome interview with her. You can check out in our podcast links. And I think you'll get a lot of information there as well. It was a great interview. So
she's a sweetie. She's an
yeah.
absolute sweetie, and she's coming back. She is making it back in the world of publishing and writing and so forth. And it just shows you there are so many
Mhm.
incarnations in your career that you can go through if you stay the course. So if you do happen to step in it or you do say something you shouldn't say, don't let it force you into a corner or figure like, okay, that's it. I give up. I'm not doing this anymore. Just learn from it and just keep
Exactly.
going.
That I
Keep
can't
going.
think of a better way to end this episode's learning and growing and don't be afraid to move forward. That's awesome.
Yes.
All
Yes.
right. Well, thanks so much, Marianne. This was a great episode. I had a lot of
Yeah.
fun. I hope you all
Yeah.
did too, and we'll see you next time.
When we
Bye.
spill more tea. No.
Bye, everybody.
Wait! Before you go, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and check us out on our website, boundbybookspodcast.com.